I am Tasha Tinagero. I am the Marketing and Partnerships Manager here at Outride. My background in the industry has been primarily focused on getting more women identifying people on bikes, from sitting on tables, holding USAC accountable for hopefully getting equal payout, to being one of the co-owners of Candlestick Courier, which was the first predominantly WTF courier company since the early 90s in the Bay Area. So very passionate about getting more women and girl identifying people on bikes. So how do we change systematic and structural barriers women face when engaging in cycling? In this session, we learn from programs that have had success in getting more girls and women riding. Our first presenter will be Ajoa Abrokwa, the president and founder of She Is Focused. Ajoa is not only a youth cycling coach, she is also committed to using the bike and other physical activities as tools to enhance the overall quality of life and well-being of youth. After Ajoa, we will hear from Gabrielle Rossi, the executive director of Girls in Gear. Gabrielle has had over 10 years of experience leading youth development organizations that use sport and recreation as a platform for larger life lessons. Finally, we will welcome Emily Green, the GRIT program manager at NICA, who will lead the panel of incredible women as they share their experience building more inclusive and welcoming environments for women in mountain biking. As a reminder, you can ask questions to our presenters through the Whova app at any time. But first, let's welcome Ajoa Abrokwa of She Is Focused.
Hello, everyone. Good morning/afternoon to the viewers. My name is Ajoa Abrokwa. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. My name is Ajoa Abrokwa, and I am joining you all today out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So it's afternoon for me. And yes, I am the founder of She Is Focused. And in short, She Is Focused is an organization that has been developed to provide support to women and girls by way of engaging in self-development, self-awareness activities, in addition to communicating and providing opportunities for women and girls to participate in physical activity and figure out ways to appropriately create a lifestyle for themselves that incorporates regular physical activity. So today I'm going to talk to you about programming that I've implemented here in the Philadelphia area, Philly Focused and Fit. And the theme of Philly Focused and Fit has been to provide exposure and an experience, and also share various career pathways to opportunities to communities of girls that typically would not have an awareness and access to these pathways and opportunities. So, I have a video here. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not going to play, and that's always, maybe it is. So this is a short video clip. However, if it's not going to play, it's fine. It was an introductory video to kind of show what programming we offer in Philly Focused and Fit, but I can talk to you about it, obviously. So Philly Focused and Fit, it started just with an idea of everything that was going on in Philadelphia. At the time, over the past 2 years, we had a lot of, programs taken away because of the lack of financial resources to be able to sustain them. However, we still had these groups of youth, and specifically teen girls, that were looking for various outlets to engage with one another, and to just kind of get away from home, get away from school, and be amongst peers. So I started riding a bike about 2 years ago, and I enjoy the fact that I'm able to build community with other women around cycling. And I wanted to extend that opportunity to teen girls. And I figured it would be a way to obviously build self-confidence, have them engage in an activity that a lot of them were familiar with, but hadn't really had access to a quality bike to ride regularly. So they were excited to get the opportunity to ride bikes. And then also we engaged in hiking, we engaged in yoga in the outdoors. So I was able to show them in their community different natural green spaces where they could go and just kind of take reprieve. So this is a picture of us. We went on a hike prior to a yoga session, and it was a really fun team building activity. And they were like, oh, we never even knew this park was here, and we were able to walk to it. So it was just also just kind of raising awareness of different spaces in our area where they could go and possibly come together and engage in a fun activity. So my mantra for She Is Focused is united by focus, together with purpose. And this really speaks to my heart and how passionate I am about the work, because I feel like in this space, we all of us on this Zoom, all of us kind of in the industry, we're united by focus, the focus of trying to diversify the sport of cycling, the focus of trying to get more girls and more youth involved in this activity because we are familiar and we know of the benefits. And then together with purpose, we are, we came together with this focus, but now we are working together and we're working to move forward in this space to really be purposeful and intentional about how we continue to carry out these goals and objectives that we have to increase the representation at all levels. So the focus for us has been obviously increasing access, wanting to provide resources, wanting to provide human resources to a community of youth that don't have access, providing education around what cycling is, the activity, and then also what that looks like as a sport, what that could look like, as a activity that you engage in on a regular basis. What are the different options? How do you become engaged? How do you engage in the activity, from a perspective of safety? What does that look like? Providing exposure. So many of the girls, they didn't know that we had these amazing trails around the area. So I was able to show them, okay, if you don't feel comfortable cycling on the street, these are some of the trails you can ride on. There are other people out here, you can come to this space and feel comfortable and be supported. In addition to that, just showing them something outside of their day-to-day. So we were able to kind of explore in the city different areas they could go to that they didn't know existed, that were very different than where they live. Still in an urban space, but just a little lower volume and all of the natural greenery that they could get exposure to. And that alone changed the mood of the girls, and it changes my mood. So just having them have that exposure, in addition to having exposure to cycling as a sport, I was able to connect the girls to different junior cyclists that have participated even at the pro level, and have them engage in conversations with them about, what that experience has been like for them. And just, they were able to ask questions, and they asked relevant questions to, a 16-year-old girl. And it was just amazing to see how relatable they were. And they were happy to see, that there was someone, a peer, someone that they could relate to that engaged in the sport at that level, but could also, give them some tips and pointers if they were just at, entry level. And then creating a high quality experience. It was really important for us to create an environment where these girls who typically would not participate in activities like this were able to come and engage at very low cost. Their families wanted them to participate, but they're like, we don't have helmets, we don't have bikes. How are we going to get them there every day? Gas is expensive. And just having them be able to come and have a really high quality experience with the resources, with the materials that they needed, and not have to worry about all of those issues, all of those barriers, just eliminating those barriers so that they could just come and be present in the space and get maximum benefit. And then the purpose, raising awareness about benefits of engaging in activity. So we talked to them just about, their moods, and how teen girls, obviously their moods shift regularly. We experienced that even during camp. One day they come in really excited and happy, next day they didn't really feel like engaging, and how the cycling helps to manage those mood swings, and helps them process kind of how they're feeling, what they're thinking. And then also it brought them back together. So even if they came in a little funky, they were able to come together around an activity we were doing or a conversation we were having about participating in activity, and just get right back focused. diversifying the spaces, we talked a lot about, I asked them, how did they view cycling? How did they view, bike riding? And how did they view it as a sport? Were they even aware of, different, career pathways in the industry of cycling? And a lot of them said no, but once we started to engage in discussions around what opportunity could look like, they're like, their faces lit up. And then I'm showing them, if you're interested in STEAM, this could be a career pathway for you. If you're interested in fashion design, this could be a career pathway for you. I was able to give them, tangible examples of, I showed them cycling apparel, and I showed them, my helmets. And one of the girls, which really made my heart smile, she said, "Oh, your helmet, they look different. And the one that you hit, like I had one on in the picture, and she's like, that looks more aero. Does that help with like, you being able to go faster? I'm interested in learning more about like the aerodynamics of the equipment that you use and, what that looks like." And I'm like, I love that you picked up on that and you noticed that. And if that's what you're interested in, then let me connect you to some people who can have those conversations with you, about what next steps could look like for you, and, better feed your interest in whatever it is that you're considering. But it was really nice to talk to them about diversity, equity, inclusion, and they were able to share some of their examples of, how they participate in sports at their schools, but they don't always feel included. We had one girl that rode crew, and she's like, I'm the only one on my crew team that is African-American, and, people don't understand why I don't always want to get my hair wet, or I'm a swimmer, but, there's not a lot of girls that want to participate in the swimming sports because of, challenges around, maintaining hair. And I don't always feel included, but I love crew, I love swimming, so I'm sticking with it. And I was able to let her know, you're not the only one that feels like that. I've had my fair share of feeling like I wasn't included. And then we talked about, as a group collectively, different ways that we could engage folks in the space to help us feel more included in the space, but then also how we go back home and talk to our friends about what we love about the activities that we participate in, and try to pull them along to see if they would love it too. And that way we can have a friend and then also create other friends in the space. But it was really fun to have those conversations with them and let them know, like, I too I faced some of those challenges, and just giving them some feedback on how I've been able to kind of navigate. And I'm still present in the spaces, so obviously things are working out. And then piquing interest in the career pathways, as I said, just showing them, and then having them also talk to. So I tapped into a few of my friends that are in the industry, and having them have conversations with them, even about, work-life balance. And, one of my peers, she is a pro cyclist. She has a singing career, and then she also has her regular full-time job. And she was talking to them about, sometimes feeling overwhelmed, but then when she gets on her bike, she's able to block everything out. And a lot of the girls said, well, when do you like to cycle best? Do you like to cycle, in the morning, or do you like to do it after work in the evening? Like, does it help you wind down, or does it help you set your day? And I love that they ask those questions, because that's something that I know others consider. We like to set the day. A lot of us like to ride our bikes in the morning, so we can set a good day and have a good mood for, what we're about to tackle, for our duties of the day. And then some of us like to use the bike as a way to wind down in the evening. And, after we've had a long day of work or engagement, we just kind of want to get on our bike and get settled. So I love that they were thinking about that and asking those questions. And that's the kind of environment that we were looking to foster with Philly Focused and Fit. It was a pilot for me, because I'm like, I know I am loving cycling and I think this is important, but I needed to get buy-in from parents to have their children participate. And that wasn't like totally challenging. They trusted me, and that was a part of it, but also it was something different, and the parents wanted their daughters to be exposed to something different. So they were sold, but then also having the girls participate. And initially they're like, I don't know if I want to do this, I'm not sure. But once we started to engage in the activities, they were like all for it. Next slide. Yep. So these are some of the goals. We wanted to build community for high school age girls. We wanted to develop self-awareness and increase self-confidence. We wanted to establish and commit to individualized health and wellness plans. So we created some health and wellness plans. We wanted to also have them engage in community outreach activities to support the increasing of access to resources. And then also we wanted to have a discussion and focus on how we can work to close health disparity gaps, with the focus being on social determinants of health. And there were 4 modules. These are the modules. We wanted to, of course, engage in self-reflection and self-development, show the business aspects of biking, the different industry and career pathways with a focus on STEAM and STEM, and then also safety and community biking activities. I was able to take them to a bike shop that is a minority-owned bike shop, and they were able to ride the bikes there. That's where we got our bikes for them to be able to rent and ride around. And they were fascinated by every aspect of it. There was a cafe there. They were able to order things from the cafe, and they just loved the entire vibe. So it was amazing, an amazing experience, and they're always emailing me looking to go back. And these are just some pictures that I wanted to share so you can see the highlights from the summer experience. So there was like in-class education. There was obviously group discussions and focus group discussions. And then we definitely went to the outdoors. And my favorite pictures are the pictures of the girls on the bikes. But then also when we went on our hike, they were fascinated just with looking at water and the different water creatures and things like that. So thank you.
Ajoa, thank you so much. I've had the pleasure of working with Ajoa as part of Outride, and she's just doing amazing work. And I will not take up too much time because I want to be sure all of you have the opportunity to ask her all the questions you have. And we actually already have one from our audience, Ajoa. It's going to be from Tavon. Would love to know more about how to source cycling helmets that support natural hair. We're facing the challenges of trying to successfully address some of our youth's concerns so they do not feel excluded or inconvenienced, but get to continue their passion.
So great question, and thank you for asking it, Kim. So what we've had to do is just size up for right now, because we're still, and I think this is like a industry-wide question just for youth and adults, still trying to figure out the most efficient way to create helmets that are safe and that still work, but also can take into consideration natural hair. So we were moving, ponytails around. We were, sizing up helmets, but it was always a joke like, oh, well, you have a big head because you need a large or you need an extra large. And, that's not the case, obviously, but some of the girls had braids. Some of the girls had locks. So we don't have, I don't have like a question. I mean, a response that like fixes the issue. However, we sized up helmets. That was what we did. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, maybe we have a lot of industry professionals here. If you're in R&D in the cycling industry, hear that question, hear it out. Ajoa, what do you think we need to do to increase visibility to women and girls of cycling, not just as a sport, but as a general activity?
Yes. I think they need to see it more. They need to see people who they can identify with engaged in the activity. It not be, and I think that we're doing more of it, but we need to do a lot more of it. Just going into the communities where kids are, where they live, where they play, and bringing this education, offering programming like what Outride does, and what a lot of us are doing in the community too. And then also connecting with parents. I'm a huge parent engagement person, and I think that is important as well, because parents, of course, they kind of direct their kids to programming activities that they want them to participate in. But if you get the parent buy-in, then they're also going to be a cheerleader for engagement in just the activity. But definitely having more school-based programs, because if you have school-based programs, it's like they really can't get around it. It's there. They spend a lot of time in school, and kids love to ride bikes. So if the bikes are there, the programming is offered, they're going to get on those bikes for sure. I believe that.
Absolutely. Completely agree. And final question, Ajoa, who inspires you in the cycling industry?
All of you. I am inspired by all of you. And I mean that. Initially, when I purchased my bike, I bought the bike so that I could engage in activity during the pandemic. However, once I became more engaged and involved in this broad community that I didn't really even know existed, I'm inspired every day by the work that I see others doing to fuse us all together, to push the inclusivity forward, to push engagement in the activity forward, and not even talking about like as a sport, but just as an activity. So when I see programs that, folks can get engaged in, I'm always reaching out. I want to support, and that's what inspires me. And I think I may have told you before, like I get up every day inspired by this work. And fortunately for me, I've been able to kind of fuse a lot of what I do around it. So it never feels like work to me. It always just feels like, labors of love. So please continue to do what you're doing. And we're going to do this all together. And I love it.
Absolutely. Ajoa, that was amazing. And I can tell you on the Outride end, if you are looking forward to hearing more from this wonderful woman, we will be amplifying more of her stories and her work moving forward. So look to that. And unfortunately, that is all the time we have for live questions for Ajoa. But let's now welcome our next presenter, Gabrielle Rossi of Girls in Gear. Additionally, Ajoa, if you wanted to throw your contact info in the chat so folks could potentially reach out to you moving forward as well.
Hey, everyone. So thank you for the introduction. And Ajoa, I'm very excited to talk to you after this, but my name is Gabrielle Rossi. I'm also coming for you from the East Coast. So good afternoon for all of us. In Eastern Standard Time, my name is Gabrielle. I go by Gabby, and I am finishing up a doctoral degree in nonprofit management, focusing on biking as a precursor of pro-social behavior. But the much more exciting part of my life is the work that I get to do with Girls in Gear. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. So this presentation about Girls in Gear really provides a glimpse into the model of programming we use as a nonprofit volunteer-led program. We are a very community-centered program where Girls in Gear's curriculum focuses on life skills through bike skills, or social emotional learning with bike handling skills for girls ages 5 and up. And we're going to focus specifically on one town, New Brunswick, New Jersey, really a city, as a snapshot of encapsulating how we use community partners to ground our work, and how we've, over the past few years, the past few seasons, have really built a model that has successfully gotten more girls safely and confidently biking through life. So to click through, if you don't mind. Yep. So just a little bit about who we are and what we do to provide a snapshot. So at Girls in Gear, my two favorite things are rhymes and alliterations. So we teach life skills through bike skills through an 8-week program that combines social emotional learning with bike handling skills. And so in this environment, over the course of 8 weeks, conversations on asking for help lead to how to change your gears, or assertive communication is tied to hand signaling while you're riding, or thoughtful leadership and leading group rides, or goal mapping and route planning. And so everything is framed around these like really big, sticky lessons that are applicable on our bikes and off our bikes. And so when we understand how we can kind of grapple with these really big challenges that we're all going through, whether or not it's resilience, grit, which are tied to lessons on what happens when you fall off your bike and how that can be really scary, we understand how we can take all the good things we have all personally gotten from riding our bikes and apply them to our day-to-day existence with more, pluck and grit. So if you can switch to the next slide. So as I'm sure we can all understand in our own personal work and understanding, and as I've kind of alluded to, biking is really this conduit, this platform for these bigger life lessons. So in some ways, our program's not about the bike at all. It's about everything we learn about ourselves through riding, and specifically through road riding. There are many, many wonderful programs for girls in biking. Ours is specifically road riding, and specifically through this social emotional learning lens. And so if you go to our next slide. So just to provide some structure about how we do what we do. So we run an 8-week season in the fall and the spring. So we're about halfway through our fall program. So over the course of those 8 weeks, teams meet for 75 to 90 minutes with volunteer coaches to go through a curriculum, like I said, that is tailored to the age and the ability level. And so we have 4 different curriculums that I'll get to in just a second that are all age appropriate and all focus on a mix of emotional development, bike maintenance, safety, and riding skills, with very much the goal of our program to be introducing participants to the joy of safe cycling. We also do one-day clinics that are more geared towards learn to rides, and bike maintenance clinics, which have become more and more popular over the course of our season. But we have girls who show up with balance bikes, tricycles, recumbent bikes, adult tricycles, 2 wheels, 4 wheels, and everything in between. And so if you flip to the next slide, we have 4 curriculums. We have a 5 to 7-year-old curriculum, which you really see the biggest breadth of ability and range in this program. And so a lot of the conversations are about expectation setting, active listening, friendship, consideration. The activities and like the bike skills are really around getting on and off your bike, safe braking, listening while you're riding your bike, biking with other people. And it's all taken place in a designated car-free area, like a parking lot or a school pavement or an area that otherwise would be car-free, so that girls can really stretch within their abilities and into their stretch zone and out of their comfort zone as they're practicing these skills with other people. And it's all done through songs and bubbles and chalk and dance and movement and joy. So the 5 to 7-year-old group graduates into the 8 to 10-year-old group. And so this group blends that designated car-free area space where they play games and do activities, but then also start going out on group rides in either on bike trails or safe spaces within the community. We are huge advocates for learning to bike where you live. As wonderful and idyllic as bike paths are, they're not necessarily the norm for a lot of communities we work in. And we're very much proponents of knowing how to bike, not just in a recreational setting, but to school and to a friend's house and for work, so that when girls know how to bike safely within our environment, they're going to be able to take that into their lives. And so we do these group rides over the course of the season with the older girls so they can start getting comfortable there. And so the 8 to 10-year-olds do a lot of group rides, but they also talk about stretching outside their comfort zones, teamwork, celebrating what makes us unique. And that's tied towards things like learning the parts of the bike or hand signaling. And like I said, the basics of riding in the streets. Then that group graduates into the 11 to 13-year-old group, and they do almost predominantly group rides with just a few sessions where they're in that contained space, just so coaches can kind of understand the ability levels. And so they have lessons around resiliency, assertive communication, asking for help. And the skills are really tied to a little bit more bike focus. So we do ABC quick checks, leading group rides, what to do when you fall off your bike, packing for a group ride. And then finally, our 14 plus curriculum is meant to do longer rides, so that they have more time to explore. And the girls are the ones who are planning those routes. And so that curriculum, the theme of grit is the overarching theme that's kind of woven through the lessons. And so they talk about grit through thoughtful leadership, grit through resiliency, grit through goal planning. And we tie in more bike specific skills in that scenario. So again, we do a lot more with bike maintenance. And so we go into more about taking care of your bike, what happens if something goes wrong. So we teach our girls how to change flat tires, how to adjust their brakes, what happens if their chain falls off. So it's much more a bike focused in a way that it's not necessarily the case for our younger girls. And for all of our programs, they're all run by volunteer coaches. We get this all the time where there's a member of the community who says, like, I really want to be a Girls in Gear coach, or I really want to volunteer, but I'm not a cyclist. I'm like, well, do you ride a bike? They're like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, okay, well, that means you're a cyclist. And so part of the importance and the joy of the program is breaking down those barriers of access for the girls, but then also for the coaches, and understanding that biking is a right and not a privilege. And it's not about everything else we ascribe to biking, about what you look like, what your bike looks like, what language you use, how tight your spandex is. So really understanding that biking is a place for all of us. So if you can go to the next slide. So to use New Brunswick as our basis of a case study, really. So Joyce Sheldon McKnight, who's an incredible scholar, talks a lot about whole community organizing, which addresses the core elements of any community, wherever you are, social interactions and relationships. And so within this mindset, we have built a network of city governments, charter schools, social service organizations, and our local transportation management association here in New Brunswick. And this collaboration has allowed us to really grow and foster this our programming in New Brunswick. It provides us with bikes and helmets, subsidized programming fees, and a no questions asked scholarship policy to ensure that everyone can bike with us, bilingual coaches, and a meeting space that is easily accessible without a car. And so the findings from this work and our partnerships have really demonstrated that if implemented thoughtfully, Girls in Gear can positively address the needs of a community while supporting a safe, car-free means of transportation through our curriculum. And so our work has really shown that programs should grow out of a community, not into the one. I never want to go into a community assuming or ascribing that biking is the answer to anything and everything, because while it solves a lot of problems, it's not all of them. And so in doing the work that we do, where we work within existing infrastructure, we build a stronger program that truly addresses the needs of our program. And so I know we just have a few more minutes. So if you go to the next slide, and so talking about access for all, this is really the benchmark and the hallmark of our program. We have a no questions asked scholarship policy, and we offer bikes and helmets to anyone in need. I was very adamant when we started this program that we wanted to break down barriers of access, as I've kind of alluded to, and working only with girls who have access to bikes continues to set that divide, right? Biking at its core is a means of getting from one place to another. It's a means of cheap transportation. But the lack of consideration around biking and transportation planning, especially in underserved communities, is starkly apparent. And New Brunswick is surely one of them. And so we offer bikes and helmets and scholarships to anyone in need. And we do that by collecting gently used bikes within our community that are then fixed up for free by a network of incredible bike shops who are able to offer that in kind as a way of scaling our program in a way that's sustainable, so that we're not creating more waste. We're not also raising money for bikes every season, which would be incredibly expensive, and creating this network where girls are able to get a bike from us, keep it for as long as they need or as long as it fits them more realistically, and then bring it back and switch it out. So just to give you a little understanding, if you go to the next slide, of what I mean when I talk about breaking down barriers of access. So these are just some visuals about New Brunswick, New Jersey, compared to Middlesex County, in which New Brunswick sits here in New Jersey, and then New Jersey generally. And so, as I was saying about the lack of consideration around bikes and transportation planning and the underinvestment, it really harms communities like New Brunswick the most, that would see the greatest benefit from cheap, effective transportation. There's been loads and loads of research, specifically out of Portland State University, that has found that costs and traffic safety concerns are the two largest barriers for low-income communities and communities of color when it comes to riding more, with 41% and 47% of respondents respectively saying that the reasons they don't ride more are because they don't feel safe on a bike and they don't feel like the community around them is safe. And so our policies of ensuring that any girl, regardless of financial mean, has access to a bike has really started to work to address those concerns. So 42% of our spring 2022 participants and 52% of our current fall 2022 participants have received assistance in the form of a scholarship, a bike, and a helmet. And so if you go to the next slide.
Gabby, we are actually out of time on slides, and we have some questions from the audience for you. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, amazing. Jacob Neiman is asking, what do you have to do to start a Girls in Gear group in a new location?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the only things that you need to start a Girls in Gear group are some dedicated volunteers, a space in which you can ride, and the enthusiasm and time to start some partnerships in our community. Like I said, we like to grow from a community, not into one. And so we're always looking for advocates who are doing work in the space, but we are growing. So we're based out of New Jersey, but we have sites across New Jersey, Virginia, Maryland, DC, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Maine are next. And so if anyone is interested in bringing Girls in Gear to the community, we provide it all: curriculum, coach training, program supplies, registration platform support, and all of that. All gender identities and biking abilities are welcome to coach, always, always, always. So I'll put my email address in the chat.
Amazing. Thank you, Gabby. Next question is going to be, this was asked of our ambassador panel yesterday too, so I am excited to hear your answer. If you could wave a magic wand to fix one problem in the cycling industry, what would it be? And do you have a recommended solution for organizations with more resources?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about this all the time, but it's, as I kind of alluded to, at its core, biking is a way to get from one place to another. And we ascribe so much more on top of that about what it means to be a cyclist, what you look like, what clothes you wear, what the language is. And so it can be very alienating for a lot of our volunteers who have to like pull their bike out of the back of the garage and like dust it off, and like they don't know what PSI stands for, but they know they like biking to the farmer's market with their kid. And that is like such a great place for us to start with. And also degenderizing bikes. So we get a lot of bike donations, and all the time I get parents who are like, I really want to donate a bike, but it's a boy's bike. I'm like, no, it's an 18-inch bike. It just happens to be red with racing stripes. Like, that is a bike that we will happily take, and someone in our program will happily ride. And so we can start to just like rip off all of that stereotypes, connotations, misunderstandings around biking, and really make sure that it is a place where everyone feels safe and feels included through education and advocacy. We're going to be in a much, much better place.
Gabby, you are doing amazing work. Thank you so much for everything you're doing to increase diversity in cycling and getting more girls on bikes. At this time, that is all the time we have for live questions for Gabby, but her contact information was listed on that card there. Gabby, feel free to drop in the chat as well. And now I will be yielding the stage to Emily Green, who will introduce our next amazing panel. That is a part of an organization I have a lot of passion for. So please welcome Emily Green, presenting our NICA Grit panel.
All right, thank you so much. Perfect, great. So my name is Emily Green. I am the NICA's National Grit Program Manager. Grit stands for Girls Riding Together, and I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having us. If you could go to the next slide, I'm going to give you just a super brief introduction to NICA for those of you who may or may not know what it is. NICA is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, and our mission is really about building strong minds, bodies, character, and communities through cycling. We are a youth development organization. We use the mountain bike as our tool to do that. Next slide. Go ahead. Well, yeah, and so our vision is that every youth is empowered to be part of a thriving and engaged cycling community. And then these are our core values that are really built into absolutely everything we do. So we've heard that theme of fun a lot over the last 2 days, and it really is key if you're trying to build cyclists for life. You've got to keep it fun. And then I'm going to be focusing a lot today on through this panel on inclusivity and equity. We really believe that everyone should be able to participate in this sport and in our programs, and we work really hard to create that inclusive spaces for everybody to make and to make it equitable, to provide accommodations for those who need it, whether they have disabilities, to just eliminate barriers, all types of barriers for everyone to join. And then we really work to integrate respect for oneself and one's community into everything we do, in addition to service. Okay, next slide. So this is where we are now. We have 30 leagues in 29 states, and most of the meat of what happens in NICA is really at the team level. So we have, this was at the end of last year. The kind of registration numbers change often, but we had almost 27,000 student athletes, 14,000 volunteer coaches, and over 1,000 teams nationwide. And it's really at the team level, the very community level, that are often associated with schools or community groups, that 95% of an athlete's experience in NICA takes place. Next slide. And what we do we're kind of often known as a race organization because those tend to be the largest and most visible of our events. But racing is like a small part of what we do. We focus primarily on the fundamentals, on teaching the skills that develop competence and confidence in youth so that they can stay on bikes for life. And then we supplement that with a whole range of programming kind of at the state or league level and at the team level that is oriented around experiential education and adventure that really uses those principles to allow kids to challenge themselves in and develop as individuals and cyclists in whatever way speaks to them. And that includes efforts to give back to their communities and do service work through things like Teen Trail Corps and trail maintenance and advocacy. And then finally, we do offer that opportunity for kids who want to participate in competition and interscholastic sport through racing. So we really try to meet kids where they are and provide multiple opportunities for them to engage. Next slide. So GRIT is an initiative within NICA specifically to bring more girls into biking. So we are about only 22% female student athletes right now and 25% female coaches. And that is, you know, largely representative. Cycling as a whole is very male dominated, right? So our objective is to increase in the next 5 years by at least 10% the number of participating girls and women. And we have a whole program that is implemented sort of across the board in the organization to do that, that is really focused on bridging that gap and very intentionally creating inviting women and girls to join. And that's what our panelists are going to talk about today, and creating the sort of sense of belonging and community that allows them to thrive and to stay. And in addition to sort of building the female leadership in our coaching ranks, so sort of getting more female coaches in so we have that representation, and helping our male coaches understand how to be strong allies of girls on bikes. Next slide. And so why do we need this program? I mean, as we all know, sports can make a massive difference in a girl's life, but girls do drop out of sports at twice the rate of boys by age 14. Go ahead and click forward. So there's a range of factors. You can just go ahead and click through about 1, 2, 3. Decreased confidence. They tend to, this is a survey from YPulse that did associated with the girls' confidence code. So showing that around puberty, girls have a vastly increased drop in confidence compared to boys, and an increased fear of failure, meaning that they tend to not try things where they risk failure. It is at 18% at age 12 and 45% by age 13. Lack of representation in role models. One more. And then poor coaching, team culture is a huge one. So final click through. So the GRIT initiative is really about creating the safe spaces and opportunities for girls and women to thrive, to build confidence, to build that sense of belonging and feel more included. Final slide, please. So with that, I really want to introduce our panel. Go ahead, sorry, one more slide. Thank you. So we have some awesome student athletes. Anya Forberger is from the Wisconsin League. It's my league. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. Brooke Bovner just graduated out of the Montana League. Shell Frost is our programs director. She is staff with NICA in the North Carolina League. Haley Childress, program manager, also staff with NICA with our NorCal League. Kira Ramirez just graduated like Brooke from the NorCal League last May. And Skylar Arnold is a current student athlete with North Carolina. So, and then I am joined by Em Meyer, who's on NICA national staff as a moderator. I would love it if you can make it so we can see all the panelists on the screen. And thank you all for joining. To start, I would love to open up and have each of our panelists and I'd like y'all to do this in the chat too, attendees. Share your share your name, share what city you're from, like what community in which you live, And what is your favorite mid-ride snack? So again, I would love for attendees to do that as well. I'm hoping everybody can see the chat, but panelists, so Anya, let's start with you.
Hello, I'm Anya Forberger. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, the Wisconsin League, and my favorite mid-ride snack would probably be either the Stroop waffles or the shot blocks.
Sweet. Stroop waffles. That is my personal favorite. Brooke, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name's Brooke. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Bozeman, but I'm currently going to school in Pennsylvania. My favorite mid-ride snack would definitely be gummy bears all the way.
Awesome. Kiara, how about you?
Hi, I'm Kiara. I'm from Salinas, California right now. I'm at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and my favorite mid-ride snack would probably be Tahoe bars.
Tahoe bars, awesome. And Skylar?
My name is Skylar Arnold. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and my favorite mid-ride snack is probably Stroop waffles as well.
Awesome. Shell, how about you?
Hi, I'm Shell, and I'm the programs director from North Carolina's League. And my favorite ride snack is probably trail mix or gummy bears.
Awesome. And finally, Haley.
Hi, my name's Haley Childress. I'm located in Santa Rosa, California, Bay Area. And my favorite ride snack, probably flour tortilla with peanut butter and jelly in it.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. All right. Awesome. Thank you again all for joining. I know some of you are taking time out of your school day, so I just really appreciate it immensely. So Grit, as we talked about, it's really about creating that intentional invitation to make girls and women feel welcomed into this male-dominated sport, and also cultivating the confidence and sense of belonging so that they stay. So let's talk a little bit about each of those. Starting with intentional invitation, I'm going to ask each of you to answer this, at least each of our athletes. How do we help girls who don't see themselves in so much in our sport yet feel as though this is something that they should try, that it's something that they can do? Like, what might get them to show up to an event or a practice, or to take the step to join a NICA team or some of the other organizations that we've been talking about in this event? What do you think? Let's start, Brooke, how about you? I'm just going to kind of go alphabetically. Or actually, Anya, how about you? I'm going to start with the A's.
I think for like girls who aren't like in biking yet, I think at least for me, I think it's a really cool sport, and like seeing like a girl leader do something that in generally I've only really seen men do. I think that was like a really big thing that helped me, someone who had like no really interest in biking, to really like try it and start trying it.
So that role model, seeing your future self, seeing those older girls trying something.
As in like, because you mostly see men doing it, and when you see a woman do it, then you start to think that, oh, hey, I can do that too.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Brooke, how about you?
I would definitely echo what Anya said about positive role models being really important. I also think like personal invitations from peers are extremely important, because often if you see someone doing something, you might not put yourself in their category and say, oh, well, that woman is really cool, but I don't know if I don't know if I can do that. But if one of your peers encourages you to come, and then you feel welcome and you feel like, well, this is my peer, I know this person, I can do this. And you have a little bit more of an accountability then to show up and be there.
Yeah, awesome. So that really personal peer-to-peer invitation can be so powerful, I think. Kira, how would you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the personal peer invitation thing has really helped me when I started riding. And I think just seeking out girls and inviting them to a really like chill, fun ride, like very low stakes. Really makes girls feel included and genuinely wanted. Whereas if it were like an all boy ride, I think there's a lot of intimidation that goes around. So I think one-on-one asking a girl, hey, like, do you want to come? Like, like no pressure sort of ride, I think really helps.
Yeah, so creating that kind of girls only space, I think is what I hear you saying, that because it can be really vulnerable, right? When you're learning something new or trying a new sport, and sometimes if you're feeling the pressure of feeling judged or like you might not be able to keep up or whatever it is, right? Like it makes it, so I think that's what I hear you saying, that very non-intimidating all girls space to try it out. Right. Awesome. Skylar.
Yeah, I mean, like Kira was just saying, I think having a Just Girls ride that's a safe space to try that out and like see, is this really something that I want to do? But also seeing other girls doing it and enjoying it, and having been in it for a long time, and seeing that kind of continuation, like, okay, girls don't just try it for a year and then stop, but it keeps going, and people have been doing it. Girls have been doing it for years on end. So seeing that, being able to see that as a role model, I think is also really helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. What from your perspective are the biggest barriers to entry for girls, do you think, in this sport? Like what keeps girls from trying it out? And you might have addressed it a little bit, but like if there's anything else that comes up, and I might just go in the reverse. So Skylar, you just what would you say here?
Yeah, definitely. So again, I would say not seeing other girls around, I think is definitely makes girls a little more hesitant to try it, because they don't see themselves there necessarily. And it's definitely intimidating going into a male dominated sport to not have anybody you can instantly see yourself hanging out with. Like if there's a girl even, you're much more likely to go and talk to that girl instead of the guy that you don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess I'll add to that too. Like what can coaches specifically do to help make it more accessible and address some of the barriers? And Kira, do you have thoughts you'd add to any of that?
Yeah, do you want me to do the first one or the second one, the coaches?
You can do
or a little bit of both.
Either or both. Yeah.
Okay, I'll touch lightly on both. I think from my perspective, the biggest barriers lie within intimidation from cycling, like being that it's a predominantly male sport. I think girls will naturally have to ride with a group of boys when they start, and they don't necessarily recognize the uncomfortability of being the only or few girls in a group. And given that those boys are probably comfortable with riding in a group of their gender, they don't necessarily feel the need to make the environment more inclusive by sparking up a conversation with a girl. So I think that's really important to kind of recognize from like an outsider standpoint, as to where that might stem from. For coaches, I think female coaches specifically can reach out and support new girls that have joined their team, offering to work on one-on-one with them, whether that be skill work or just simply communicating any discomforts or concerns that they have about the sport.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. That you mentioned that, and I think we see this sometimes, that men and our male student athletes, because they're comfortable, don't always see or understand really why girls might not be, and why we might need a program like Grit, right, to make this more accessible. Brooke, how about you?
I think the presence of coaches who identify as women is incredibly important, because when you have that top-down presence, it's clear to everyone on the team, whatever gender, that everyone is present and welcome from leadership down. And so the more coaches who are women, the better it is for everyone. And then also, again, I really like how Kira brought up that issue of guys not understanding that it's a problem, because that is definitely something that I have personally experienced as well. And I think coaches can have deliberate conversations about why it is something we need to consider, and that just, you know, having an open, frank conversation about that can be really helpful in making everyone understand the situation better, and then potentially going forward being more consciously aware of what's going on.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Anya, over to you.
I think that like the biggest barrier is kind of a skill difference between like the men and the women in the sport. Because it's more male dominated, oftentimes they'll like start the sport a little bit earlier. And when they've started earlier, and then like a girl comes in and like you're the same age, but then you like very clearly see that, hey, this person can do a bunny hop, this person can do the blue lines, and I'm still like on the green ones. I think you're less likely to want to stay in it because you just keep seeing like a discrepancy. And something I think that coaches can do to really help like women like stay in the sport would be more like focusing on encouraging progress and celebrating kind of like the difference from where they started, and like the progression of skill.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Anya, but you started as a freshman in high school, right? Like, was that your first year of biking?
I started as a freshman in high school mountain biking.
I mean, hats off, kudos, it's fantastic. Shell or Haley, before we sort of, anything either of you want to add on sort of the, maybe what has worked in your league, so what you've seen work to be creating that intentionally inclusive space and bringing more girls in. Anything you want to add to what these awesome panelists have said so far? Haley, I'll ask you first.
They touched on a lot of the points that I would have made, and to reiterate, a pressure-free invitation I think goes a long way, and maybe not focusing so much on so focusing on the positive elements of the sport that aren't necessarily directly tied to cycling. So like, hey, come out and, you know, ride with this group of girls. It's going to be fun for these reasons, not because we're going to go like shred this gnarly trail. So using language that's going to be more tangible for them, and pressure free, I think, is a great way to go about it.
Yeah. Cool. Shell, how about you?
Something that I think we're fortunate in North Carolina that our league has done a really good job with, but I think has really benefit females in our league a lot, is being really mindful and intentional about meeting people where they're at when they join the sport, and not setting this expectation of you have to be an athlete. Some people might not see themselves as athletes yet, and making sure that they know that they matter in that space. And we've kind of cultivated this culture within North Carolina where we're very fortunate that our student athletes and our coaches really take a lot of pride now in being the ones to make sure our new student athletes and coaches have the support and kind of community that they really needed when they first started. And they're vulnerable enough to share like that this can be really intimidating to show up and do these, they're doing hard things, and coming to events with people from other teams that they may have never met, on trails they may have never rode. That takes a lot of courage, and being vulnerable enough to acknowledge that those were things that may have been intimidating to us as well, gives them the opportunity to see that not only have these females done that and built their confidence up to where they are, that they can as well, and they have that support. I think that's really huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much. So I want to not shift over, but I want to talk a little bit more, building on that sort of confidence and belonging piece. And but I also want to invite those listening, please don't hesitate to put questions in the chat. Maya is here and is going to help kind of help me elevate those and keep track of that. So I wanted to talk about sort of what helps girls stay. In some, I guess in my experience as a coach, what we've seen a little bit on our own team is that as girls gain skills and competence, they then gain confidence. And Anya, you were sort of referencing this, it helps deal with sometimes the difference in skills between a kid who's been biking since maybe he was 5 and a girl who started at 9th grade. And so as they gain confidence, helps them feel more comfortable with like the inherent challenges of the sport and cultivate that sense of belonging and that they can succeed. But it also seems really important to cultivate those that sense of belonging through community and relationships and building relationships between women and girls on a team. So what has been most important to you as an athlete in terms of helping you feel that you belong in the sport? Like what has made you stay? Anya, let's start with you. What helped you stay after you joined?
I made friends in the sport, and at first it was like when I just started, obviously not on any hard trails or anything, but we would just talked and had fun. And at first it was really awkward, but I remember we had one specific moment where my friend had a crash. And I think at that moment we all started coming together and making jokes about it and having that little group that I rode with. And then we started to like progress together. That really helped make me stay. And it was a mix of like girls and men riders.
Sweet. Awesome. Brooke, how about you?
I definitely agree that the community, you come because you want to bike perhaps, or you want to try it out, but you really stay because you found a community. You can bike alone and it's not as much fun, but you can bike with amazing women and other people, and it is the best time ever. And so having that sort of network of people who are supportive and really want to be with you and want to be in nature and build healthy life habits is just immeasurably important.
Awesome. Thank you. Kiera.
Yeah, I just kind of bouncing off what everybody has said so far. I think the community, and I don't really take that lightly, because if it hadn't been for that ride leader or that girl on the team to encourage me to keep going and see that I could do something with this sport in the future, I would not be on this panel today, which is something so incredibly awesome to even think about. So I think having a solid community that has your back and wants you to do well goes such a long way. And I'm very fortunate for that. So I think community for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Skylar. You?
Yeah, I think definitely, like everyone else has been saying, that community and being able to find your group within the sport. When I first started, there was a group of both boys and girls who, it was our first year, all of us on our team, and we were all kind of a similar skill level. And so we would go out and we would ride trails, and like Anya was saying, we progressed together. And so having that kind of sense of community was really huge for me. It kept me in it into the second and third years. Now I'm one of the only one of that little group still riding bikes for various different reasons, but I have now found my community within Grit. And so being able to still have that community really keeps me going. So I think community, again, is the huge part of it.
Yeah. Okay. So awesome. So I'm gonna have you each speak, like, as a follow-up to that. What specific suggestions might you have for what either coaches or athletes, frankly, can do to very intentionally to help build and support that community? Like, do you have thoughts on what coaches or athletes can do to create that inclusive culture and sense of belonging and community? And again, I'll go backwards. Skylar.
Yeah. So I think a big thing for coaches would be to, kind of find those skill level circles, and maybe split up your team instead of having like a random group of 5 go ride. We'll have the 5 that are a little bit slower go together and the 5 that are a little bit faster. And then you can really tailor your coaching. And within that, you don't have anybody left out, either boy or girl, who doesn't feel like they're not good enough to ride with the fast kids, or they're too good to ride with the slow kids. You have that more range of abilities, and it's much more focused, I think. And it gives, I mean, I would rather go ride with a guy who's my speed than a girl who's 10 times faster than me, just because there's a difference in skill. And so you feel like you're either too fast or too slow. And so it's, it can be stressful on either rider, where having that sense of community, I think, is definitely split it up into the different skill levels. So.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Kiera, how about you?
Yeah, I think working more closely with newer girls or riders can really make a huge difference. I think one thing that they could also do is not like when they're going, like if there's like a certain descent that's maybe really intimidating, the coaches can be really patient and forthcoming and show them how to descend and give them tips and techniques to go through them. So just being really patient, I think, with new girls. Another one I think is to do like all girls events, like I'd said before previously. But another one is maybe like off bike events, to like go on a hike or get dinner together. Something as simple and mundane as that, you can spark up a lot of conversation about any discomforts or concerns that you have about riding, or anything. Like talk directly with them to see what they would like to see for that specific area. I think would really help and like tailor to whatever needs they have in mind. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so creating that opportunity for girls to come together, and the sort of safe space to talk openly about whether it's biking or not biking, right? And build that community. Awesome. Okay. Brooke, how about you?
For coaches, I would say, and this is specifically for high school level athletes, but kind of cultivate friendships, I guess, with your athletes, because I personally, and I don't think this is just me, I don't like to feel like I'm being condescended to. And when my coach speaks to me like I'm her friend, or, you know, because we are friends, then I just feel like I'm a part of this process. I'm not being told, this is how you descend the hill, you're not doing it correctly. I'm being like, I'm with my coach, figuring it out. It's a more of a community process, and having those friendly relationships with your coaches makes it just more fun and more community focused from all levels, not just within the peer network. And then I would say for with student athletes specifically, as Kiera said, like my team, we did picnics, but hikes are awesome too. Just really casual, not expensive, or really not difficult to include a lot of people. Anyone can show up, just sort of issue an open invitation. I'm going to be at this park with a baguette at this time if anyone wants to come. And I think those are the times when people really bonded over random things that weren't even really related to biking, but then you could bring that camaraderie back to the bike, and then it was just that much more impactful.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is kind of a low lift event, right? It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It's just creating that space and the opportunity for connection. Yeah. Okay. Anya, what you?
Similar to what Brooke and Kiera said, I think when coaches facilitate and really know their riders, I think it really helps. For example, if you have like in like a smaller pod, you have all sorts of different riders, and all of them are going to have like different goals. If a coach, like if a student gets past a goal and a coach specifically makes sure to like honor it and make sure to like bring it to like the pods or team's attention, being like, hey, here's this little feature that this athlete was struggling on, and kind of like they finally got through it, or they finally met their goal, they finally did something that had been challenging them. Showing that helps the student athletes feel a lot more like seen and heard, and I think that it really helps people a lot.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, thank you so much. There are a few, excuse me, a few questions that are coming through that are related, but and I would open these up actually to anybody on the panel, including Shell and Haley as well. What are some specific suggestions? So things that have worked for effective recruiting. And Anya, I'm actually going to call on you again because so Anya, we had our end of season banquet last night and recognized Anya with a Grit Award actually, because she, this is a student athlete who's really volunteered a lot and been the first to sort of help out at all of our girls only recruiting events, and even got up super early to join us at a practice that was filmed at like 6 o'clock in the morning on the local news to highlight one of our girls only tryouts. So thank you for that. So maybe do you want to speak a little bit from your perspective, or like what about that? Because I think actually you served in that mentor role there,
yes,
right, at those tryouts.
So actually, my story goes back a little bit farther, because my first time mountain biking was at one of those Grit tryout events my freshman year. I had seen the club in like a school like club fair, because we were a club sport at our school, and I decided that before my parents were really made sure I got into it, I went to try it out. And at this point, I really had nothing except for like an interest into this sport. And my parents quickly informed me that I would also need a bike and a helmet and all sorts of other things, which of course I did not have. But at the Try It Out event, I met a rider called Opal, who I think was a mentor for me. And I also got to try out, we have a fleet of like rental bikes, and so I didn't even need a bike to try it. I could just go there. There's a bike fitted for me, and I got to just ride, and I got to try it out. And so I've specifically made it kind of a thing to volunteer at this same event for as many years as it was held, minus one that it wasn't going at COVID. But I think it has been probably one of our most effective tried out events, because I've definitely seen kids that have been at the tried out events join teams around Madison and a little bit more. And I think one thing is having the older riders there. You see someone in a jersey, and at first it's a little intimidating, but when the person is really friendly with you and you're just really awkward because you're on this new thing and a bike that probably isn't yours, and you start to have fun. And I think that's what really helped me start my biking journey.
Awesome. And I would say, yes, you're right. So we held, our team did 2 female athlete, girls only tryouts, and had a total of about 64 girls come through. And every year I've had girls join because of that. And this year we did one for coaches as well, had 14 women come through and got 3 new female coaches. So highly recommend female only, try it out type of events. Anybody else want to comment on specific recruiting ideas that have worked? And I did hear, I'll just highlight one-on-one, that personal outreach somebody brought up earlier. Sorry, I cut someone off. Go ahead.
So North Carolina has a Grit mentor program. And so new girls can sign up as mentees, and then they'll get assigned a ambassador or a group of ambassadors. And then there's different meetings throughout the season that really come together. And so last year was really awesome for me to see. I was one of the mentors, and I had, along with a couple other ambassadors, I had a group of 3 mentees, and it's so awesome because one of them at the end of the year, she was like, I really didn't want to stay involved in biking. I was the only girl on my team. And at the beginning of race season, I really didn't want to be here, but I came anyways. She didn't race the first race, but she came to see what it was all about. And so by the end of the season, she was all for it. She was awesome. She was super excited. She was like, I can't wait for next season to start. And she just like was so excited about it. Where I think having that kind of one-on-one or 3-on-3 or that group of an older girl and a younger girl to really highlight the community aspect of it. I mean, there was so many other girls as well that now some of them are ambassadors, and they wouldn't necessarily have continued riding had it not been for that mentee program. But now they're here and they can't wait to get back into the next season. So I think that's really awesome.
That's awesome. It's fantastic. I think that just shows the power, Skylar, too, of that, like, again, that the power of a mentor, of an example, of that role model for younger girls. And so thank you for serving in that role. I do want to ask, somebody asked, there's a lot of good questions in here. So let's address this one, as I think it's important. Somebody asked, what does male allyship look like to NICA, to GRIT, and to the female athletes on the panel? So I can offer a couple of things, because as I said, 75% of our coaches are male. And so we will absolutely not be successful in leveling the playing field unless, like, without their help and their support. And this is really true for, I think, increasing our racial diversity as well, because we are also mostly white. And so in terms of allyship, we are really working with our male coaches to understand, what does it look like to support getting more girls and women on bikes from a supporting role? How can male coaches support try it out events? Not necessarily lead. Can you put women in leadership roles, but how can you support? How can you bring girls there, handle registration, do the bike checks, set up the loaner fleet? These are all things that male coaches on our team have done. For example, how can you help facilitate girls only events and really or create opportunities, maybe skills trainings or recruitment drives for female coaches? Can you ask your female coaches to level up to, again, put those role models in place? So those are a few things in terms of what it looks like, but I want to put it to our panelists quickly too. We have just a couple minutes left. Does anybody, athletes or Haley or Shell, want to comment on allyship, like male allyship, what that looks like to you?
I'll comment. So kind of just reiterating what you said, putting them in supporting roles. For example, there's some leagues that have moms on bike rides, and I'm trying to bring that into the NorCal League. And we have a male coach, head coach on one of our teams, who they have no female coaches and they have 2 female student athletes. And so he's trying to change that for their team. And so I suggested that he start with this to, for one, bringing more female leaders to their team. So he's running with it. He's going to implement these rides into his team. And then once he has enough female support, then he's going to hand that off to them. So he's going to be more at the forefront of implementing this, and then be more of a supporting role once he's able to step into that.
Yeah, awesome. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Something that we're going to have going on in our preseason events that start this weekend that we've never had on this scale before is a good number of our male league staff are going to come to all of our GRIT events, and just to help in the background, to just kind of stand back and wait until they're asked for help, or just do whatever they see that needs to be done. So to open up bandwidth for these female coaches to work on their confidence. And I think in the past, we've watched that be really effective in helping them build their confidence and set an example of how to be positive male allies. But I think it has also really helped build confidence in our female coaches and our female student athletes to see them show up for them consistently and show that that space matters, not only to me as the programs director, but to everyone on our league staff and everyone in our league, showing that that space and them being part of our league is a priority for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all. I cannot thank you enough again for taking time out of your day to be here, both those of you in the audience, and thank you to our students and our two program directors, managers for being on the panel today. Y'all are awesome, you rock, and thank you for getting more girls on bikes. So with that, we'll wrap up this this panel and turn it over back to you all at Outride.
Thank you, Emily. I am wholeheartedly a supporter of NICA and Grit. I personally have a strong tie to it because Grit was my first ride after my spinal cord injury last year. So thank you for all the work you're doing, and awesome to see what's developing even just in the last year. So on behalf of Outride, I would like to thank you all for coming to our panel on increasing the number of women and girls in cycling. As the partnerships manager here at Outride, I would love to invite every woman and girl at the session to utilize both myself as an individual, as well as Outride's resources and network to get more girls on bikes. I'll throw my contact info in the chat, but you can also find me on outridebike.org. Thank you all for the incredible session. It's now time for a break. Get up, move around, stretch your legs, and we'll see you back here at 11:20 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.